Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Late Night Brew, where we talk to the brews first and then we get around business afterwards. I'm Robert Bartonica, also known as Buck, and tonight on the show with me is Gary Cohen. Tonight, we're going to discuss Citrix, where things are heading, and what it's going to look like in the new normal. Gary, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Buck. Thanks very much for having me this evening. It's been a really interesting nearly couple of years now with the whole remote working aspect, and really looking forward to talking to you about that this evening.
Absolutely. But first things first, what are you having with me tonight? I know it's early on Down Under.
Well, it is early, but I've got my standard concoction that I normally have every morning after I've done a nice long run. It's a bit of a gummy berry juice, if you remember the gummy berries back in the days, in the 80s and 90s. So it's a bit of a mixture of a bit of a cocktail to give me a bit of energy to get through the day, and obviously mixed with a bit of water. So we're all good. We're all set to go. As we say, kampai.
Kampai. Cheers. I am drinking a IPA. It's a session, and unfortunately, there's a whole lot of glare, so you can't get a good view of the can. But it's a lot lighter. It's not a brutal, hoppy IPA. It's something you can drink for most of the day and just enjoy the time with friends. So and not feel like death the next day because you've drunk way too many high octanes. But
well, we're just at the start of our day, so we can't have anything like that just yet. So we got to have things to get our energy up and running.
Exactly. I'm burning through most of my day. It's in the evening already, pretty much happy hour. So we have a rough idea of what Citrix is. They are a name in the industry for many years. And I think it would be a good one to start with, what you've seen, and then we'll go into, where it's going to be headed.
So as I mentioned before, we've gone through a real interesting time. I'll bring a real story. Last Friday, I was actually walking in a local shopping center, and I bumped into one of our existing customers that I haven't seen in a while. We actually designed and built their Citrix environment. They're a large manufacturing organization. And he said to me, and we 18 months into the pandemic, and he said, thank God for Citrix, because if it wasn't for Citrix, they would not have been able to keep their users working, because they sent everyone home. They were able to give all their users access to their apps and their resources and their data in a secure way. True story. He said that to me. So we hear that from a lot of customers that they had to make a very quick decision to send people home, and they expanded their footprint of what they had before, which was just a remote access solution.
Yeah.
And they expanded that to then cater for different types of profiles, different types of users that would need to continue with their day-to-day activities, but in a remote location, being working from home. But we also get asked the question, which we can talk a bit further into it, how relevant is Citrix going to be in the future for us to be able to continue with providing access to our applications and our data? So we've got both of those to discuss today. Is customers have continued and expanding their use of Citrix. Also, customers at the highest level considering what are the futures about providing access to their apps and their data.
Definitely. And a lot of companies have, in the last 18 months, had to make that hard choice of how do we expand? How do we adapt with not having an office anymore? How do we cope with that? So yeah, let's tackle a bit of the first point and go from there.
So Citrix have come out with some really interesting products, namely Citrix Workspace Intelligence, as well as the secure internet access. And those are all some really great products that we're looking at in the future. But what we've really seen over the last 18 months is big growth in some of their traditional products. So CVAD, their Citrix Apps and Desktop service, whether it's coming out of Citrix Cloud or continue down the traditional path of being on-prem. Also, the whole networking portfolio. We've seen a huge growth in customers taking advantage of Citrix ADC from a load balancing perspective or from a single sign-on side of things, as well as being able to load balance different data centers to be able to give access to multiple customers all over the world. So huge growth still in their legacy products, being CVAD and the networking products as well.
Yeah, it's does Citrix have the same, I'd say, ecosystem integration that we see, Microsoft, Apple, that kind of where the apps really kind of feed into one another as you adopt them?
We're certainly starting to see that more and more. We're starting to see customers using 365, Azure consumption, using their Citrix platforms too. So where we're seeing Citrix Cloud and users having tenancies within Azure or within AWS, we're now starting to see workloads more and more being provided out of those cloud platforms. We saw a huge spike in the usage of Microsoft Teams, and Citrix have the right solution to be able to allow for users to still have that end user experience and be able to be productive using those collaborative tools, especially Microsoft Teams within a virtual desktop or within Teams itself.
Oh, okay. So there's not a need to say, hey, you have to get Teams for yourself somehow, some way, whether you're ready to be working from home or not. Instead, you can say, hey, here's your Citrix desktop. And by the way, Teams is in there. You don't have to, shift at all like you did from your workspace, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there are still many legacy applications out there. So whether organizations feel that they're no longer going to give users access to all those apps out of a Citrix session, as we call it, but there are still the legacy apps that we still need to be able to give users access to. So those apps are still coming from either a Citrix desktop or just a Citrix published application, as they call it. And then users use their SaaS-based or their traditional applications from their modern desktop. But then the legacy applications, they're still getting via a desktop being Citrix. We're starting to see a lot more of WVD, so Microsoft WVD, either being used by itself or being managed by Citrix Cloud itself. And then users being able to access those desktops out of Azure, but being managed by Citrix Cloud.
Wow. I haven't read too much into WVD beyond, the standard, getting to know the high level. I didn't realize there was that type of integration. So in given, and this is actually a lot like Microsoft. They're rather than trying to compete, they're saying, yeah, well, like Linux, and yeah, you want to run Red Hat in Azure, have fun. We don't care. So it's really interesting to see with that integration between Microsoft and Citrix of, hey, now we're working together as partners, which, same with Plugin and Centra, we work together with our partners to deliver the best solution. And Citrix and Microsoft are doing that. So on the back of that, do you see the remote work trend continuing, going to grow? People talk about the new normal. From your side in the Citrix, what do you think, or how do you feel that the new normal is going to evolve when it comes to workspace and remote work?
So I still see there being a requirement to give access to legacy applications to users. That's not going to go away for a long period of time. BCP requirements have certainly increased as well. So whether you're using Citrix or a combination of Citrix and Microsoft, for when we need to make decisions quickly to be able to send people to work remotely, that's still a great solution to give them a secure desktop or secure access to their resources and their data. So that is still a really powerful solution to be able to meet business requirements. But as you probably know, there's so many different platforms of choice now, and it all comes down to the business requirements, because a lot has changed right over the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
And end user experience, security is at the top of the list, and all these solutions need to tick all those boxes. So all these solutions can tick them, but it comes down to the business requirements at the end of the day. And as I mentioned right in the beginning, we have a number of clients now considering what their future options are. And with our advisory services, this allows us to actually sit down with customers and understand from both a technical and a business side what the right solution is for them. And it could be a mixture of everything. And that's what we're seeing today.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, on that good point, that does round up our time for today. So Gary, thank you. I appreciate you sharing your morning with me, getting to talk a little bit about Citrix and the remote work. I appreciate it. If anyone has questions or feedback, our contact information is down below. Please reach out. And as always, if you have an idea for a future episode, let us know. We'd love to hear it. Until then, take care of yourself and have a fantastic day. Cheers.
Thanks very much. See you later. Bye.